Alright, Stevie J from AngryMarks.com with another episode of the Ultimate Fighter recap, and you can call this episode Psychology. That was the focus this week. Jones was trying to get Adam Cella psyched up, and Cella said he had nothing to lose going into the fight because his family had a good business and he had a good education, and he could always give up fighting and go back to that, so he felt like it made him a better fighter because he could go out there and go for broke without any worries. Hall, on the other hand, admits to having self-doubt, asks Sonnen what he can do about it, and Sonnen tells him that the best thing you can do is prepare for the worst thing you can do, to always think of the worst possible outcome so you're not surprised by it when it comes. It says he even talked to Randy Couture about this at one point when he was on a losing streak, and Couture told him, you can never get rid of that negative voice in your head, you can just learn to work with it or work around it. I think Hall learned to work with it because this fight didn't even get out of the first round. Those of you who've seen the trailers and the hype leading up to this episode know that Dana White called it one of the nastiest knockouts he'd ever seen, not only in The Ultimate Fighter, but in the history of UFC. He wasn't kidding. Uriah Hall, with 5 seconds left in the first round, threw a reverse spinning head kick that knocked Cella the hell out. I mean, out cold. I mean, eyes glassed over. I mean, oh my God, is this guy going to be okay knocked out? Hall was really worried about it, and they left us on that cliffhanger with a commercial break and came back, and Cella got back up and had no memory of the fight, had no idea what had happened to him. But in the locker room, Steve Mazzagatti tried to reassure everybody, told them they were taking him to the hospital, and he said his memory would probably come back in an hour or so. I don't know if that's actually true. That might be wishful thinking on Mazzagatti's part, but of course we didn't see that because that's going to be next week's show. We're going to find out how well Adam Cella is doing then. And Adam really was doing well in the fight early on. He was being the aggressor. He was pushing the pace. He was throwing a lot of jabs, but whenever Hall would tie him up in a clinch, he would eat some knees, and whenever he'd throw a kick, Hall would trip him to the ground, and he just got caught flat-footed, and Hall spun around and kicked his head off. So that's the way it goes sometimes. Next week's fight, despite all the campaigning from Bubba McDaniel to get it, he doesn't wind up facing Kelvin Casey. That's not up to him. That's up to Sonnen, and he chose Kelvin Casey to fight Collin Hart. So that'll be our fight next week. Stay tuned for that. And after this video, you'll see a graphic showing who's been eliminated and what the team standings are. Stevie J, AngryMarks.com.